Reading music is a very good tool to have in your toolbox. It's a wonderful skill to be able to play by ear, but knowing how to read music and sight reading helps you in many other ways. So let's go over first how to read open strings. First, what we need to know are our note values. Our note values are how long we hold each of our notes. So a quarter note looks like this, and our quarter rest looks like this, and each gets only one beat. For a rest, we don't do anything special. We just sit there and rest. We don't play anything. A quarter note gets one beat each, and it looks like this on the violin. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Each one gets one beat and a full bow. Our half note and half rest looks like this. Each gets 2 beats, and we're just going to slow our bow down. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we just hold a rest for 2 beats. We don't do anything. A whole note and a whole rest looks like this. And we slow down the bow even more for 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And a whole rest you just hold for 4 beats. Now when we read music on the staff, each of our open notes, when we read music on the staff, we have our open strings on the spaces. Our G is here, our D is here, our A is here, and our E is here. Now, no matter what kind of note is on each of those spaces, it's always going to be that letter name. I have a helper. So we can have an E, a quarter note E right here. We can have a half note E. We can have a whole note E. They are all on the same space. So let's try out a few from this page, the open string page. Our first line, it's always best to say it before we play it. Our first line has quarter notes, quarter rests, and a whole note at the end. So let's say it before we play it. A, rest, rest. D, rest, rest. A, rest, rest. D. So let's try to air bow it and say it at the same time. Ready, go. A, rest. So let's air bow it and say it at the same time. Ready, go. A, rest, rest. D, rest, rest. A, rest, rest. D. Good. Now let's try to play it. 1, 2, ready, go. Rest, 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 rest. Good. Now let's look at our second line. Our second line contains half notes, half rests, and a whole note at the end. So we're going to hold each one out for 2 beats. Da, rest, rest. So let's read the notes first. Ready, read. A, rest, rest. D, rest, rest. E, rest, rest. A, rest, rest. D. Now let's air bow it. 1, 2, ready, go. A, rest, rest. D, rest, rest. E, rest, rest. A, rest, rest. D. Now, I recommend you to keep your bow on the string and not lift and reset, but to hold it there quietly and then just roll over to the next string during those rests. So let's try it out with our bows. Line 2, 1, 2, ready, go. Rest, rest. Rest, rest. Rest, rest. Rest, rest. Good. Let's look at our third line. Our third line consists of quarter notes, half notes, and whole note. So let's say it before we play it. A, 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 A. E, 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 A. So let's airboat before we play it. We want to make sure that we still have a full bow even for those quarter notes. Ready, airboat. A, 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 A. E, 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 A. So when we roll over to our adjacent string, or the string right next to it, we want to make sure that we're just rolling over, that we're not lifting. So let's try out that third line. 1, 2, ready, go. Good. Now let's do our fourth line. Our fourth line is quarter notes, quarter rests, half notes, and a whole note. So let's say it before we play it. Ready, go. D, rest, D, rest. G, G, D, rest, D, rest. A, D. Now let's airbow it. Ready, go. D, rest, D, rest. G, G, D, rest, D, rest. A, D. Now let's try it with the bow on the strings. 1, 2, ready, go. Rest, Good. Now, keep practicing as much as you can and work so that you can get a nice full bow for each of those notes that have a very even, consistent sound all throughout the bow, from the frog to the tip and all the way back to the frog again. Thanks. Good luck.